Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whitaker. Dear listeners, what a delight it is to have you here with me on this crisp autumn evening, or whenever you may be tuning in. Today, we're diving into a brand new original mystery, inspired by the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. It's called Death of the Judge in Marble Hall, a deadly Hercule Poirot story. Picture this: a grand country estate in the misty English countryside of the 1920s. Secrets lurking behind marble walls, and our beloved Hercule Poirot unraveling it all with his little grey cells. Chapter 1: The Invitation to Marble Hall. Welcome, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Evelyn Whitaker, and oh, what a treat we have tonight. Settle into your favourite armchair, pour a cup of tea, or perhaps something stronger, and let's step into the misty English countryside of 1927 for a tale of intrigue. Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. A deadly Hercule Poirot story. We'll take our time, letting the suspense unfold slowly, like a fog creeping over the hills. Before we begin, do drop a comment below. Where are you listening from? A cosy flat in London? A seaside cottage? Or somewhere far across the globe? Now, let's begin. The autumn of 1927 draped the Sussex countryside in a tapestry of crimson and gold, as if the very leaves whispered secrets of the season's end. Marble Hall, the grand estate of Sir Reginald Harrington, stood resolute amid rolling hills, its Palladian facade gleaming like a polished jewel under the pale October sun. The mansion's marble columns and intricate cornices spoke of wealth amassed over generations, yet its imposing beauty held a certain coldness, as though the stones themselves guarded truths best left buried. Sir Reginald, a High Court judge renowned for his unyielding verdicts and moral rectitude, had summoned a select group to his home for what he sells had unravelled mysteries that baffled lesser minds. Yet this invitation intrigued him, for Sir Reginald was no stranger to controversy. The judge's recent rulings, particularly the sentencing of a notorious smuggler, one Thomas Blake, to the gallows, had stirred whispers of retribution. Blake's brother, a shadowy figure in London's underworld, had vowed vengeance. Could this be the matter of importance? Poirot folded the letter neatly and resolved to attend, sensing the stirrings of a puzzle worthy of his talents. The journey to Marble Hall was a study in contrasts. A rattling train from Victoria Station, followed by a chauffeured Rolls-Royce that purred along winding lanes. As the car crested a hill, the estate came into view, its marble facade catching the last rays of a sinking sun. Ivy clung to the walls, softening their severity, while manicured gardens stretched into the distance, bordered by ancient oaks. The air carried the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, a reminder of autumn's relentless advance. Poirot adjusted his Homburg hat and stepped onto the gravel drive, his patent leather shoes crunching softly. The butler, Mr. Elias Graves, greeted him at the grand entrance. A tall, gaunt man in his 50s, Graves had the air of one who had served too long under a demanding master. His eyes, shadowed and unreadable, flickered over Poirot before he bowed stiffly. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome to Marble Hall," he intoned, his voice as crisp as his starched collar. "The master awaits in the drawing room. May I take your coat? Poirot declined with a polite wave, preferring to keep his overcoat's warmth against the chill of the vast foyer. Inside, Marble Hall was a monument to opulence. The entrance hall's marble floor gleamed under a chandelier that glittered like a constellation, casting prismatic light on portraits of stern-faced Harrington ancestors. A grand staircase spiraled upward, its banister carved with motifs of laurel and scales. Poirot's keen eyes noted every detail: the faint scuff on the floor, the slightly crooked portrait, the way Graves's hand, silver-streaked hair pinned in an intricate chignon. Her silk dress shimmered softly, but her fingers betrayed her nerves, twisting a pearl necklace as if it were a lifeline. "A pleasure, Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes avoiding his. Was it grief, guilt, or merely fatigue that shadowed her face? Poirot filed the question away. Lounging by a window, cigarette in hand, was Edward Harrington, the judge's only son. At 28, he had the rakish charm of a man accustomed to privilege, yet his dishevelled tie and bloodshot eyes spoke of dissipation. "Father's idea, this gathering," he drawled, exhaling smoke. "Something about family matters, though he's tight-lipped as ever." His wife, Clara Harrington, sat nearby, a striking beauty of 25 with auburn curls and a porcelain complexion. Her smile was polite but strained, and she clutched a lace handkerchief, her gaze fixed on the floor. Sophia Langton, Sir Reginald's niece, perched on a sofa, her spectacles glinting as she surveyed the room. At 32, she was sharp-witted and unapologetically modern, her bobbed hair and tailored suit defying the estate's old-world formality. "Uncle Reggie insisted I come," she said with a wry smile, adjusting her glasses. "Though heaven knows why. He's not one for idle reunions." Her tone held a hint of defiance, as if she anticipated a confrontation. The final guest was Victor Langford, a barrister and Sir Reginald's longtime colleague. In his mid-50s, he had a fox-like grin and eyes that missed nothing. "Reginald and I go back decades," he said, swirling a glass of brandy. "Rivals in court, friends outside, mostly." His laugh was too sharp, and Poirot noted the tension in his grip, as if the glass might shatter. Tea was served, the clink of porcelain punctuating stilted conversation. Sir Reginald spoke of his latest case, the Blake trial, with a bravado that didn't quite mask unease. "The man deserved his fate," he declared, "but his kin, ruffians or—" with a flash of anger. Clara's hands trembled, and Langford's smile tightened. Graves, overseeing the service, moved like a spectre, his face unreadable. After dinner, the party retired to their rooms, the house settling into an uneasy silence. Poirot, in his lavish suite overlooking the moonlit gardens, paced before the fire. The room was exquisite: silk wallpaper, a four-poster bed, a writing desk with fresh ink. But it was the human puzzle that occupied him. "There is tension here, oui," he thought, stroking his chin. "A family bound by wealth, yet divided by secrets. And Sir Reginald? Why invite Poirot? What storm brews in Marble Hall?" Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. Somewhere in the house, a door creaked. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The game. It begins." Chapter 2. Whispers in the Night. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, your guide through this shadowy tale of Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. Oh, how the plot thickens tonight. If you're just joining us, settle in, perhaps with a blanket and a warm drink, and let's lose ourselves in the misty corridors of 1927 Sussex. Last time, we met our cast at Marble Hall, where secrets simmer beneath the polished surface. Tonight, we venture into the night before the crime. Where are you listening from, I wonder? Drop a comment below. Your cozy corner of the world adds such charm to our little community. Now, let's dim the lights and listen to the whispers in the night. The great clock in Marble Hall's entrance hall struck midnight, its chimes reverberating through the silent estate like the tolling of a distant bell. The sound echoed off marble walls, winding through darkened corridors and up the grand staircase, where shadows danced in the flicker of gas lamps turned low. Outside, the October wind howled, rattling windows and sending leaves skittering across the gravel drive. Marble Hall, for all its grandeur, felt alive with unease, as though the very stones sensed the storm gathering within its walls. Hercule gambling at London's underground clubs had mounted to thousands, and Sir Reginald's threat to disinherit him echoed in his ears. "Damn the old man," he hissed, finding only legal briefs and a locked diary. His search was cut short by a creak from the hall. He froze, then retreated, leaving a drawer slightly ajar. In her suite, Lady Amelia Harrington sat at her vanity, her reflection pale in the mirror's soft glow. Her silver-streaked hair fell loose, and her hands shook as she brushed it, stroke after stroke, as if to calm a racing mind. Her marriage to Sir Reginald had crumbled years ago, eroded by his temper and whispered affairs with actresses and heiresses. She opened a locket, revealing a faded photograph, not of her husband, but of a young man with soulful eyes, a lover from her youth, long vanished. Rumours swirled of her closeness to Victor Langford, the barrister, though she denied it to herself. "No," she whispered, snapping the locket shut, yet her eyes darted to a letter on her desk, half written to a solicitor, hinting at divorce. Could freedom come at such a cost? Sophia Langton, Sir Reginald's niece, occupied a smaller room in the east wing, her bedside lamp casting a warm glow over a clutter of books and papers. A modern woman with a sharp mind, she pored over a letter from her uncle. Its tone, curt. "Your behaviour is unbecoming. We shall discuss your future." As his only blood relative, Sophia had long assumed a generous inheritance. But recent arguments, her advocacy for women's suffrage and her refusal to marry, had strained their bond. "He can't disinherit me," she muttered, adjusting her spectacles. She scribbled a note, then tore it up, the pieces fluttering to the floor. Rising, she paced, her shadow long and restless. Had she heard footsteps earlier, or was it the house settling? Clara Harrington, Edward's young wife, wandered the halls, unable to rest. Her auburn curls were pinned loosely, and her silk nightgown whispered against the marble floors. Married at 20 to a man who neglected her for cards and drink, she felt trapped in Marble Hall's opulence. Sir Reginald's behaviour toward her had grown unbound them, a case where a jury's verdict had been swayed, perhaps not entirely by chance. Sir Reginald had hinted at exposing it, a threat that could ruin Langford's career. He rose, slipping a small notebook into his pocket, and stepped into the hall, his footsteps silent on the rug. Mr. Elias Graves, the butler, moved like a wraith through the servants' quarters below stairs. For 20 years he had served the Harringtons with unwavering loyalty, his gaunt frame a fixture of the estate. Yet Sir Reginald's recent accusation of theft, unfounded but humiliating before the staff, had left a bitter taste. Graves knew every inch of Marble Hall, from its secret passages to the creak of each floorboard. As he polished silver in the pantry, his eyes fell on a key ring, one key missing, a duplicate to the study, perhaps misplaced. He pocketed the ring, his expression unreadable, and glided upstairs to check the locks. Poirot, sensing the house's unrest, donned his dressing gown and ventured into the corridor. His suite, with its silk wallpaper and four-poster bed, was luxurious, but it was the human drama that held his attention. He moved silently, his ears attuned to the night's secrets. Near the library, he heard a rustle. Edward, retreating to his room, unaware of the detective's presence. Further along, Clara's hurried steps echoed, her face pale as she vanished into her suite. Then, from the study, a muffled argument reached Poirot's ears. Sir Reginald's voice, sharp and commanding. "You'll not get a penny more." A second voice, lower, indistinct. Male or female? The words dissolved into silence, followed by the click of a door. Poirot paused, his mind racing. "Un dispute," he thought. But with whom? And why such secrecy? He tested the study door, locked as expected. Sir Reginald's habit of securing his sanctum was well known, the key kept on his person. Poirot returned to his room, noting the time, 1 o'clock. He sat at the desk, sketching a mental map of the house, its occupants, their motives. Edward's debt, Amelia's discontent, Sophia's defiance, Clara's fear, Langford's grip. Coffee, his gaze fixed on the floor. Poirot observed them all, his moustache twitching. Quelque chose ne va pas, he thought. Something is wrong. Graves knocked on the study door. No answer. He knocked again, louder. Silence. The key was inside, the door locked, a habit of the judges to ensure privacy. With Edward's help, Graves forced the door, the wood splintering. Inside, a ghastly sight awaited. Sir Reginald slumped at his desk, blood pooling on the blotter. A Webley revolver in his hand, a bullet wound to his temple. The windows were bolted, no footprints in the dew outside. A note lay beside him, inked in a shaky hand. I can no longer bear the guilt. The room gasped as one. Lady Amelia screamed, collapsing into Sophia's arms. Edward stared, frozen. Clara wept, her handkerchief pressed to her mouth. Langford's eyes narrowed. Graves stood rigid, his face a mask. Poirot stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. Non, mes amis. This is no suicide. The angle of the wound, the position of the hand, it is all wrong. This, I tell you, is murder. Chapter 3. The Crime Discovered. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, and oh, how the shadows deepen in our tale of Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. If you're curled up with a cuppa or listening under the stars, you're in for a treat as we unravel the next twist in this 1927 mystery. Last time, the night whispered secrets, and now a shocking discovery awaits. I'd love to know, where are you joining us from today? Share in the comments below. Your notes make this journey so special. Now, let's step back into Marble Hall, where the air grows thick with suspicion. The fog that cloaked Marble Hall on that October morning in 1927 seemed to mirror the haze of dread that settled over its inhabitants. The grand estate, with its marble facade and sprawling garden, adjusted her spectacles, her sharp gaze darting between her fellow guests. Victor Langford, the barrister, buttered his toast with a steadiness that seemed almost too deliberate, and Mr. Elias Graves, the butler, moved like a shadow, his gaunt face betraying nothing as he refilled cups. "Reginald is never late," Lady Amelia said at last, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. She glanced at the ormolu clock on the mantel, its hands pointing to 8:30. Something must be wrong. Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fear. Edward shrugged, his tone brittle. Probably lost in his papers. You know how he is. But his fingers drummed nervously on the tablecloth, betraying his unease. Clara's teaspoon clattered against her saucer. He was upset last night, she murmured, then fell silent, her eyes fixed on her plate. Sophia frowned, her voice sharp. Upset? He seemed fine at dinner, if a bit pompous about that will nonsense. Langford chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. Reginald always did love his theatrics. Perhaps he's staging a grand entrance. Poirot set down his cup, his movements deliberate. Mes amis, let us not speculate. Monsieur Graves, have you seen Sir Reginald this morning? The butler, standing by the sideboard, stiffened. No, sir. I knocked on the study door at 7, as is his custom for morning tea. There was no answer. The door was locked, as always. His voice was steady, but Poirot noted a faint tremor in his hand as he adjusted a napkin. Then we must investigate, Poirot declared, rising with an air of quiet authority. Allons-y. The group followed Graves to the study, a heavy oak door at the end of a marble corridor. Portraits of stern Harrington ancestors glared down, their eyes seeming to judge the procession. Graves knocked again, his knuckles rapping sharply. Silence. He tried the handle, locked as expected. Sir Reginald's habit of securing his study was well known. The key he kept on a chain in his pocket. Edward stepped forward, his voice low. Guilt? What guilt could Reginald possibly have? Graves stood rigid, his gaze fixed on the floor, as if the sight were too much to bear. Poirot took charge, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Calmez-vous, s'il vous plaît. Do not touch anything. This is a crime scene. He knelt beside the body, his gloved hands careful not to disturb the evidence. The revolver's grip was slick with blood, the barrel warm, recently fired. The wound's angle was awkward, the powder burns faint, suggesting distance. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he examined the note. The handwriting was similar to Sir Reginald's, but the strokes were uneven, the ink too fresh. No, he murmured. This is no suicide. This is murder. The local constable, a portly man named Inspector Hartley, arrived within the hour, his boots tracking mud across the marble floor. Looks like a clear case of suicide, he grumbled, scratching his chin. Man shoots himself, leaves a note. Happens, you know. Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. Monsieur l'Inspecteur, appearances deceive. The angle of the shot, it is not natural for a man to hold a pistol so. And the note, it is too convenient, n'est-ce pas? We must investigate. Hartley sighed, but agreed to seal the room. Poirot began his inquiries in the drawing-room, where the fire still crackled, a stark contrast to the chill of fear. He questioned each suspect, his questions precise, his eyes missing nothing. Lady Amelia, revived with a glass of brandy, sat trembling. Reginald was troubled, she admitted, her voice barely audible. That Blake trial, the smuggler he sentenced to hang. The man's brother sent threats, vile letters. Reginald laughed them off. But I saw his fear. Poirot noted her clenched hands, the way her eyes avoided the study door. A motive, perhaps? A wife scorned, or fearful of scandal? Edward, his bravado gone, slumped in a chair. We argued last night, he confessed. He said I'd be cut from the will. My debts, you see. Gambling. I was in 11, as always. I heard nothing unusual. Poirot's gaze lingered on the butler's cuff, where a faint smudge of ink stood out against the white linen. Ink from the study, perhaps. Clues began to emerge, each a piece in Poirot's mental mosaic. Near the study door, a porcelain vase lay shattered, its shards scattered across the marble floor, knocked over in haste. A faint scent of perfume lingered in the study, floral and delicate, reminiscent of Lady Amelia's signature scent. Yet she claimed to have retired early. The note's paper matched the judge's stationery, but the handwriting's slight irregularities nagged at Poirot. He examined the room further. The revolver had fired one shot, the bullet lodged in a bookcase. The window's rusty latches showed no signs of tampering, and the dew outside was undisturbed. As the fog lifted, revealing the gardens in stark relief, Poirot paced the lawn, his mind alight. The locked room. Comment est-ce possible? No secret passages, I think. But a trick. Oui. He glanced back at the house, where faces peered from windows, each hiding their truth. The household gathered again, their eyes heavy with suspicion. Poirot addressed them, his voice soft but firm. Mes amis, someone in this house has committed a grave crime. The truth, it will not hide from Hercule Poirot. Chapter 4. Investigation begins. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, your companion through the twisting corridors of Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. Oh, what a tangled web we weave tonight. If you're nestled by a fire or gazing at the stars, you're in the perfect spot for this next chapter of our 1927 mystery. Last time, the grim discovery of Sir Reginald's body sent shockwaves through Marble Hall. Now, Hercule Poirot takes the reins. Where are you joining us from, I wonder? Drop a note in the comments. Your cozy corners make this tale all the richer. Let's step back into Clara, Sophia, Victor Langford, and Mr. Graves gathered at Poirot's request, their faces a gallery of unease. Inspector Hartley hovered near the door, his notebook open, though his skeptical frown suggested he still leaned towards suicide. Poirot, standing by the hearth, addressed them with calm authority. Mes amis, we must reconstruct the night of Sir Reginald's death. Who last saw him alive? Speak, and let the truth guide us. Mr. Elias Graves, the butler, spoke first, his gaunt frame rigid as he stood by the sideboard. I delivered brandy to the master's study at 10 o'clock, as was his habit, he said, his voice measured. He was at his desk, writing. I left him and locked the house by 11. Poirot's eyes lingered on the butler's hands, noting the faint ink smudge on his cuff, now partially concealed by a folded sleeve. Merci, Monsieur Graves. And you heard nothing after? Nothing unusual, Graves replied, though his gaze flickered to the floor. Lady Amelia, seated on a sofa, clutched her pearl necklace, her face pale beneath her powder. I bid Reginald good night at 9:30, she said softly. He was in the dining hall, finishing his claret. I retired to my room. My headache, you see. Her voice wavered, and Poirot noted the scent of her floral perfume, the same he'd detected in the study. You did not visit the study later, madame? He asked gently. She shook her head, but her fingers tightened on the pearls. Edward Harrington, slouched in an armchair, ran a hand through his dishevelled hair. I saw father at dinner, he muttered. We argued about money. He went to his study afterward. I was in bed by 11. His bloodshot eyes darted to Clara, who nodded faintly. She can confirm it. Poirot's moustache twitched. And yet, Monsieur Edward, you were seen near the library after midnight. Comment expliquez-vous cela? Edward flushed. I couldn't sleep. Went for a book, that's all. His defensiveness hung in the air like smoke. The study window. He was agitated, muttering about family betrayals. I left him to it. His fox-like grin was too smooth, and Poirot noted the slight tremor in his hand as he lit another cigarette. Poirot moved to the study, Hartley trailing reluctantly. The room was as they'd left it. Sir Reginald's body removed to the morgue, but the blood-stained blotter remained, the Webley revolver now in Hartley's evidence bag. Poirot examined the desk, noting the stationery matched the suicide note, though the handwriting's irregularities still troubled him. The bullet had lodged in a bookcase, its trajectory odd, too high for a self-inflicted shot. The window's rusty latches showed no signs of tampering, and the dew outside remained undisturbed. The shattered vase near the door, its porcelain shards scattered, suggested haste or struggle. Quelque chose a été renversé, Poirot mused. But by whom? Back in the drawing room, Poirot deepened his inquiries, questioning each suspect privately. Edward's room yielded a clue. A stack of gambling slips hidden in a drawer. Debts totaling over £5,000. You argued with your father about money, oui? Poirot asked. Edward's jaw tightened. He called me a disgrace, said I'd get nothing, but I didn't kill him. His alibi wavered as Clara admitted he'd left their bed briefly around midnight. Lady Amelia, in her suite, showed Poirot a letter to a solicitor, half-drafted, requesting divorce papers. Our marriage was a prison, she confessed, tears welling. But murder? I could never. Her perfume bottle sat open on her vanity, its scent unmistakable. You were not in the study, madame, Poirot asked again. Her denial was firm, but her eyes betrayed doubt. Sophia, in her book-strewn room, showed Poirot a diary entry. Uncle's will is unfair. I deserve my share. Her motive was clear. She stood to lose her inheritance for her modern ways. I argued with him last week, she admitted. But He claimed it was from routine duties. Poirot noted a keyring on Graves's belt, one key missing. The study key, monsieur? Poirot asked. Graves shook his head. Only the master had it. Clues multiplied, each a thread in Poirot's tapestry. The shattered vase suggested a hurried exit, but whose? The perfume pointed to Lady Amelia, yet her alibi held for now. The gambling slips damned Edward, but his presence in the library was inconclusive. Sophia's lens and Clara's bruise hinted at secrets, while Langford's cigarette and Graves's ink raised questions. Poirot tested the study door's lock. Could a thread have turned the key from outside? Possible, but the gap beneath the door was narrow, the mechanics uncertain. As evening fell, the household dined in silence, the clink of silverware echoing in the vast hall. Poirot observed from the sidelines, his grey cells whirring. The locked room, he thought, pacing the gardens under a crescent moon. It is not impossible, merely clever. But who is clever enough? The wind carried a faint scent of tobacco, and Poirot's eyes narrowed. La vérité, she is close. He returned to the drawing room, addressing the group. Mes amis, the clues are many, but the truth is singular. Someone in this house knows more than they say. Hercule Poirot will find them. Chapter 5. Clues and Red Herrings. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, and how delightful to have you with me once more in the enigmatic world of Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. Our 1927 tale grows ever more intricate, with clues lurking in every corner and red herrings swimming through the fog. If you're unwinding after a long day or savoring the evening quiet, this is your chapter. Tell me in the comments, what clue do you think Poirot will unravel next? Your theories always spark such fun discussions. Now, let's return to Marble Hall, where deception dances in the shadows. As the second day dawned over Marble Hall, the Sussex countryside stirred under a veil of lingering mist. Slightly. Unlocked it using a combination gleaned from Sir Reginald's diary, the judge's birth year. Inside lay a draft of the revised will, its parchment crisp and ominous. Edward was disinherited entirely, his gambling debts cited as moral failure. Sophia was favoured with the bulk of the estate for her loyalty, though notes scribbled in the margins questioned her scandalous associations. Lady Amelia received a meagre annuity, her discontent noted bitterly. Clara, curiously, was granted a small legacy, perhaps to appease Edward. Victor Langford had a bequest struck through, once a token of old friendship, now revoked amid accusations of past indiscretions. And Graves, the butler, was pensioned off handsomely, a surprise concession. Ah, the motives deepen, Poirot murmured, folding the document. Inheritance is a powerful poison. Word of the safe's contents spread like wildfire through the household, fueling accusations and alibis. In the drawing room, where the fire crackled against the chill, Poirot assembled the suspects once more. The velvet sofas and crystal decanters seemed incongruous against the grim proceedings. Mes amis, this will explains much and misleads more. Let us examine the clues with care. A false lead emerged swiftly, a bloody handkerchief discovered in Edward's laundry hamper by a maid. The crimson stain appeared damning, suggesting proximity to the crime. Edward blustered, his face reddening. "It's from dinner. Ketchup from the roast. Ask the cook." Poirot examined it under lamplight, the blood flaking oddly. A quick test with a chemist's kit, borrowed from Hartley, confirmed it. Tomato sauce, not blood. A red herring, perhaps planted to shift blame from another. Edward's relief was palpable, but Poirot noted his gambling slips, now openly confessed, tied him to the motive nonetheless. The faint perfume scent in the study, floral and insistent, pointed accusingly at Lady Amelia. Her vanity held the matching bottle, half empty. Confronted, she paled. "I wore it at dinner, yes, but I retired early. Someone might—" "What's mine?" Motive clear, but her alibi held, corroborated by a servant who saw her reading late. Clara's locket, opened during a private interview, revealed not Edward's photo, but Sir Reginald's, a youthful portrait from decades past. "A gift from him, years ago," she stammered, tears welling. He was kind then. Poirot's gaze sharpened. The judge's advances she'd hinted at suggested coercion. The bruise on her wrist, now fading, she attributed to Edward's temper in an argument over money. "He grabbed me. Nothing more." A footprint outside the study window, small and heeled, matched Clara's shoes from a morning walk. Red herring or damning evidence? Langford's cigarette butt, found under the terrace window, bore his monogrammed cases mark. Timed to his chat with Sir Reginald, it seemed to place him near the scene. "I smoked there often," he drawled, lighting another. "The fog makes one crave fresh air." But Poirot noted the butt's ash was undisturbed by wind, placed post-murder. Langford's grudge deepened with the will's revocation, whispers of a bribed jury in an old case where Sir Reginald had shielded him once, but now threatened exposure. Graves' ink smudge on his cuff matched the studies well, and the missing key from his ring fueled suspicion. "I handle correspondence daily," the butler said stoically. "The key, perhaps misplaced in the chaos." Poirot tested the note's handwriting against samples. The suicide confession mimicked Sir Reginald's script, but with forged tremors, inked that night. Graves' access to the study made him suspect, yet his pension in the will suggested loyalty rewarded. More clues surfaced amid the red herrings. A broken clock on the study mantel, stopped at 12:15, contradicted alibis. Edward's library visit, Clara's wanderings. Tampered? Poirot pondered, winding it. It ticked normally. The empty brandy glass on the desk tested negative for poison. Another false trail Hartley pursued eagerly. A servant maid, trembling, recalled overhearing Langford and Sir Reginald arguing days prior. Something about a dirty secret from the courts. Hidden compartment in Sir Reginald's desk. Letters from Blake's brother. Threats scrawled in crude ink. "You'll pay with your life, Judge." External motive, or planted to deflect inward? Hartley latched onto it, but Poirot dismissed it. "No, the killer is among us." Private confrontations yielded more. Edward cracked, admitting slipping into the study earlier for money. Unlocked then, he claimed. "Father wasn't there." Lady Amelia confessed, drafting divorce papers, fearing scandal. Sophia admitted forging a letter to sway the will. Clara revealed Sir Reginald's proposition, rejected fiercely. Langford hinted at the bribe. "Reginald covered for me once, now he'd expose it for leverage." Graves, cornered, admitted resentment over the theft accusation, but swore loyalty. Poirot paced the gardens as rain began, the gravel crunching underfoot. Red herrings abounded. Handkerchief, perfume, spectacles, footprint, cigarette, ink, all pointing fingers, yet none conclusive. The true clue lies in the impossible, he thought. The locked room demands ingenuity, not brute force. Lightning flashed, illuminating the house's silhouette. Inside, eyes watched him. Paranoid, plotting. Back in the drawing room, Poirot addressed them. "Mes amis, the clues dazzle like fireworks, but fireworks fade. The red herrings swim, but the shark lurks beneath. Patience and truth will surface." Chapter 6. Complications and Twists. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, and oh, how the plot twists tonight in our chilling saga, Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. If you're cozied up with a warm blanket or sipping tea by candlelight, you're in for a treat as the shadows deepen in 1927 Sussex. Last time, Hercule Poirot sifted through clues and red herrings, some tantalizingly close to the truth, others leading us astray. Now, complications arise, and surprises lurk around every... Sputtered against a growing chill, accusations flew like sparks. Edward Harrington, his face haggard from sleepless nights, pointed at Victor Langford. "You hated father," he shouted, his voice cracking. "That old court grudge, you'd do anything to silence him." Langford's fox-like grin faltered, his cigarette trembling. "Watch your tongue, boy. I've no blood on my hands." The room crackled with hostility, and Poirot observed, his dark eyes missing nothing. A startling revelation came from Lady Amelia, who, in a private moment with Poirot in her suite, confessed to an affair, not with Langford, as rumoured, but with a gardener dismissed years ago. "Reginald found out," she whispered, her pearls clutched tightly. "He threatened to expose me, to ruin my name. I stayed for duty, not love." Her tears were genuine, but Poirot noted her trembling hands. Had shame driven her to desperation? The perfume in the study, hers undeniably, now seemed less a clue than a misdirection. Perhaps someone had used her bottle to cast suspicion. Sophia Langton, the judge's niece, added another twist. In a heated exchange with Poirot in the library, she admitted forging a letter to Sir Reginald, posing as a solicitor to sway his will in her favour. "I only wanted what's fair," she cried, her spectacles slipping down her nose. "He was going to cut me out for my modern ideas, my work with the suffragettes." The letter, found crumpled in her room, was a clumsy imitation, but it deepened her motive. Yet her alibi, reading in her room, confirmed by a maid, held firm. Or did it? Poirot recalled the shattered spectacle lens near the study, its break too fresh for her claim of dropping it earlier. Clara Harrington, Edward's wife, unravelled further in a tearful interview. "Reginald tried to force himself on me," she confessed, her auburn curls falling over her tear-streaked face. "Days before, in the garden. I slapped him, told him I'd tell Edward." The bruise on her wrist, she now admitted, was from Sir Reginald's grip, not Edward's. "Quarters. It leads to the cellar, not the study," he said, his gaunt face impassive. "I showed it to prove my transparency." Yet Poirot's inspection found the passage dusty, unused. Another red herring? Or a clever ruse? The ink smudge on Graves' cuff, matching the study's well, and the missing study key nagged at Poirot. Graves' pension in the will suggested loyalty, but his resentment over the theft accusation burned quietly. A storm broke that evening, rain lashing Marble Hall's windows as thunder growled. In the chaos, a scream pierced the darkness. Clara, claiming she'd seen a ghostly figure in the hall, cloaked in shadow. "It was him, Reginald," she sobbed, collapsing into Edward's arms. Hartley dismissed it as hysterics, but Poirot's eyes narrowed. A distraction, perhaps, to disrupt his focus. The power flickered, plunging the house into gloom, and footsteps echoed in the corridors. Poirot lit a candle, his silhouette sharp against the marble walls, and patrolled the halls, finding nothing but silence. A new twist emerged. The revolver in Sir Reginald's hand was not the murder weapon. Poirot, examining Hartley's evidence, noted a second Webley missing from the judge's gun case in the library. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, "the shot we see is not the shot that killed." Hartley scoffed, but Poirot's tests suggested the fatal bullet came from a different angle, perhaps fired before the body was staged. The suicide note's fresh ink, written that night, pointed to a forger among them, skilled enough to mimic Sir Reginald's hand. Another complication. A servant reported hearing a muffled shot during the storm, around midnight, masked by thunder. Yet no one admitted hearing it. A silencer? Poirot dismissed it. The Webleys' design made silencers impractical. Instead, he theorized a ricochet trick, a bullet fired through the window, bouncing off a bookcase to mimic a close shot. But the windows were bolted, the latches untouched. Impossible. Yet it happened, he mused. Poirot confronted the group in the dining hall, the candlelight casting long shadows. Mes amis. Cloth. Each clue pointed to a killer among them, yet the locked room defied logic. The mind, he thought, It plays tricks, but Hercule Poirot sees through them. Thunder rolled, and a flash of lightning illuminated his face, resolute and unyielding. He addressed the household one last time before bed, his voice soft but piercing. Mes amis, the complications are many, the twists clever, but the truth, she is like the lightning, sudden, bright, and undeniable. Sleep well, for tomorrow, Poirot will strike. Chapter 7. Deeper Suspicions. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, and oh, how the suspense thickens in our chilling tale of Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. If you're curled up with a warm drink or listening under a starry sky, you're in for a treat as we dive deeper into 1927's Sussex. Last time, twists and complications swirled like the storm over Marble Hall, but Hercule Poirot's grey cells are hard at work. I'd love to know, who's your prime suspect now? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your clever guesses make our mystery community sparkle. Now, let's return to the estate, where every glance hides a secret. The fourth day at Marble Hall broke with a reluctant sun, its rays piercing the fog that clung to the Sussex estate like a shroud. The marble facade, once a beacon of justice, now loomed as a monument to betrayal, its grandeur mocking the chaos within. Hercule Poirot, his suit as impeccable as his logic, stood in the garden, gazing at the study's bolted windows. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington, shot in a locked room, a forged suicide note beside him, remained a puzzle of exquisite complexity. Les soupçons, they deepen, Poirot murmured, his moustache twitching. But the truth, she is like a diamond, hidden, yet sparkling when found. Inside, the household teetered on the edge of collapse. The drawing room, with its crackling fire and velvet drapes, was a pressure cooker of accusations. Edward Harrington, his eyes hollow from sleepless.
Latest discovery. A faint scratch on the study's key, suggesting manipulation. Un fil, peut-être, he mused, recalling his thread-through-keyhole theory. Yet the door's narrow gap and lack of fibres frustrated the idea. New evidence surfaced, tightening the web. In Edward's room, Poirot found a ledger hidden beneath a floorboard, detailing debts to unsavoury London bookmakers, over £10,000, with threats scrawled in the margins. Pay or else. Confronted, Edward's bravado crumbled. I went to the study that night, yes, he admitted, his voice hoarse. I thought father might have cash. The door was unlocked. He wasn't there, I swear it. Clara, trembling, contradicted him. You were gone longer than you said, she whispered, her eyes avoiding his. Poirot noted the crack in their alibi. Had Edward lied, or was Clara deflecting? Lady Amelia's suite yielded a revelation. A completed divorce petition, signed and dated the day before the murder. I plan to leave after this weekend, she confessed, her voice breaking. Reginald's cruelty, his affairs, his threats, it was too much. Her perfume, still a lingering clue, was complicated by a discovery. A vial of it in the servants' quarters, near Graves' room. Stolen, she insisted, but Poirot wondered if she'd entered the study to confront her husband, only to be framed. Sophia's motive sharpened with a letter from a suffragette group, praising her activism, but noting Sir Reginald's disapproval. He called me immoral, she told Poirot, her jaw set. Threatened to disinherit me for my radical ways. A secret lover, a fellow activist, was hinted at in her diary, adding scandal to her motive. Yet her spectacles near the study, clean of prints, suggested a plant. "Someone wants me blamed," she said, her voice cold. Poirot agreed. The lens was too convenient. Clara's bruise, now fading, was re-examined. "Edward grabbed me during an argument," she admitted, retracting her earlier claim about Sir Reginald. "He was angry about Father
Ago,"
he said, his eyes shadowed. The ink smudge on his cuff now faded, linked to the forged note. A search of the servants' quarters uncovered a scrap of paper in Graves' handwriting, practicing Sir Reginald's signature. "For correspondence," he claimed, but Poirot's gaze was piercing. The butler's pension, generous in the will, suggested loyalty, or a bribe to silence. A new clue complicated matters. A faint burn mark on the study carpet near the desk, unnoticed before. Poirot knelt, sniffing. Gunpowder, but faint, suggesting a second shot, or a staged burn. The missing Webley, still unaccounted for, fueled his theory of a staged suicide. Le coup fatal. It was not from the gun in his hand, he told Hartley, who scoffed. "You're chasing ghosts, Poirot." Yet a ballistics test arranged hastily confirmed the bullet in the bookcase didn't match the revolver's caliber. Another gun, hidden. Poirot tested his thread theory again, using a fine silk string from Clara's sewing kit. The key turned, but the string snagged, leaving fibers, none found in the study. "No, not this way," he sighed. An alternative, an ice bullet, melting to hide evidence? Impossible. The wound was too precise. A ricochet, perhaps, using the bookcase? But the angles didn't align. The locked room remained a fortress of mystery. The storm's aftermath revealed more. A muddy boot print in the cellar, near the hidden passage, matched Langford's size. "I explored the house," he claimed. "Curiosity, nothing more." Yet the passage's dust was disturbed, suggesting recent use. Not to the study, but where? Poirot found a trapdoor to the attic, locked, key missing. Another red herring? Accusations peaked in the dining hall that evening, candlelight flickering on strained faces. Sophia pointed at Graves. "You know every secret in this house," she accused. Graves retorted, "And you, Miss Sophia, were skulking near the study." Edward lunged at Langford, restrained by Clara. Lady Amelia wept, murmuring about curses. Poirot raised a hand. "To Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, and oh, how the tension crackles tonight in our gripping tale of Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. If you're nestled by a roaring fire, or gazing at the moon, you're in for a whirlwind as we reach a turning point in 1927 Sussex. Last time, suspicions deepened, and Hercule Poirot's little grey cells faced a maze of clues. Now, the house teeters on the edge. What's your theory on the killer's next move? Drop it in the comments. Your insights make our mystery circle so vibrant. Let's step back into Marble Hall, where the truth is tantalizingly close. The fifth day at Marble Hall dawned with a restless energy, as if the estate itself sensed the unraveling of its secrets. The Sussex sky hung heavy with storm clouds, their shadows creeping across the marble facade like fingers of doubt. Hercule Poirot, his suit pristine despite the chaos, stood in the grand foyer, his dark eyes tracing the spiral of the staircase. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington, shot in a locked study, a forged note proclaiming guilt, had drawn a net of suspicion around the household. Yet the locked room remained a riddle, its solution teasing Poirot's little grey cells. "Le point de rupture," he murmured, adjusting his tie. "Ce breaking point. It comes for all." The household was fraying, nerves worn thin by days of scrutiny. In the dining hall, where breakfast lay untouched, accusations erupted like sparks from a fire. Sophia Langton, her spectacles glinting, pointed at Mr. Elias Graves. "You know every corner of this house," she snapped. "Every passage, every key. You could have slipped in and out." The butler, his gaunt face a mask, retorted sharply. "And you, Miss Sophia, were skulking near the study that night. Don't think I didn't see." Edward Harrington, his face haggard, lunged toward Victor Langford, only stopped by Clara's trembling grip. "You scheming snake," Edward roared. "Father was going to ruin you." Langford's grin was icy. "Careful, boy. Your debts make you draw bottom." Inside lay the true will, dated a week prior. It divided the estate equally among Edward, Sophia, and Lady Amelia, with Clara receiving a modest trust and Graves a pension. Langford, however, was cut out entirely. No bequest, no mention. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered. "This changes the game." The decoy will, favouring Sophia and pensioning Graves, had inflamed tensions, perhaps deliberately. Who planted it? Confrontations followed in the drawing room, where the fire's glow cast eerie shadows. Edward, shown the true will, paled. Equal shares. Then why the argument? His alibi cracked further. Clara admitted he'd slipped out for nearly an hour that night, not minutes. "I was in the library, I swear," Edward protested, but Poirot's eyes narrowed. A ledger of debts, now totaling £12,000, sat damningly in his room. Lady Amelia, trembling, confirmed her divorce plans. "The true will gave me freedom," she said, tears falling. "But I never entered the study that night." The perfume clue weakened. Poirot found a spilled vial in the servants' pantry near Graves' quarters, suggesting a frame. Yet her affair with the gardener, revealed in a letter, added scandal to her motive. Sophia's secret lover, a suffragette named Margaret, surfaced in a coded telegram found in her room. "Uncle threatened to expose us," she admitted, her voice defiant. "He called it unnatural." The spectacle lens near the study, now confirmed fresh, hinted at her presence, yet no prints tied her directly. Was she framed or cunning? Clara's footprint outside the study window, matched to her shoes, grew suspicious. "I walked there days before," she insisted, but the dew's pattern suggested a fresher mark. Her locket, with Sir Reginald's photo, was a family heirloom, she swore, but Poirot noted her fear when questioned about the judge's advances. The bruise, from Edward or Reginald? Her story wavered. Langford's notebook, detailing the bribed jury, revealed a deeper twist. Sir Reginald had evidence, a signed affidavit from a juror hidden somewhere in the house. "He was going to destroy me," Langford confessed. A tiny brass cog, found under the study desk, from a mechanical device, perhaps a clock or timer. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "C'est ça. The locked room is no magic. It is mechanics." He theorized a rigged gun, triggered remotely, but the missing Webley complicated it. The burn mark on the carpet, gunpowder tinged, suggested a test shot. Hartley scoffed, but Poirot's tests confirmed the bullet in the bookcase came from a different gun, hidden or discarded. The storm's aftermath revealed another twist. Footprints outside, washed away, but a single muddy print in the attic matched Langford's boots. "I explored," he insisted, but the attic held a locked chest, unopened. Poirot's lock-picking skills, honed in Brussels, failed. The key was elsewhere. A red herring, or the key to the crime? Accusations peaked at dinner, the candle-lit hall a stage for despair. Edward accused Clara of lying about his alibi. "You're hiding something," he shouted. Clara sobbed, fleeing to her room. Sophia and Graves exchanged barbs, while Lady Amelia murmured prayers. Langford, cornered, accused all. "You're all vipers, clawing for gold." Poirot silenced them. "Mes amis, the killer's mask slips. The true will, the cog, the print, they point to one among you." Poirot paced the gardens at dusk, rain-soaked gravel crunching. The locked room's secret nagged, mechanical, not mystical. The cog suggested a device, but where? The missing gun, the forged note, the true will, all pointed inward. The killer is bold, he thought, but not infallible. Lightning flickered, illuminating his resolve. In the drawing room, Poirot faced the suspects, his voice low but commanding. "Mes amis, the breaking point is here. The truth lies in the mechanics of deceit. Tomorrow, Hercule Poirot will name the killer." Welcome back, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, and oh, what a moment we've reached in, with its roaring fire and velvet drapes, was the stage for his denouement, the air thick with anticipation. The suspects, Lady Amelia, Edward, Clara, Sophia, Victor Langford, and Mr. Elias Graves, sat in a tense semicircle, their faces etched with fear, defiance, or resignation. Inspector Hartley stood by the door, his skepticism softened by Poirot's relentless precision. Poirot stood before the hearth, his diminutive frame commanding the room. "Mes amis," he began, his voice soft but piercing. "The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington is no longer a mystery. The locked room, the forged note, the hidden will, they all point to one truth. The killer is among you, and Hercule Poirot will name them." Gasps rippled through the room. Lady Amelia clutched her pearls. Edward's hands clenched. Clara's eyes darted to the floor. Sophia adjusted her spectacles. Langford's grin vanished, and Graves stood rigid, his gaunt face unreadable. Hartley folded his arms, muttering, "Get on with it, then." Poirot paced slowly, his eyes scanning each face. "Let us begin with the crime. Sir Reginald was found shot, a Webley revolver in his hand, a note proclaiming guilt. The room was locked, windows bolted, no entry possible. Suicide? No. The bullet's angle, the faint powder burns, the forged handwriting, all scream murder. But how? The locked room is the key, and the key is a deception. He held up the study key, its faint scratch glinting in the firelight. This key, locked inside, suggests no escape. Yet I propose a simple trick. A string, threaded through the keyhole, turned the lock from outside, then pulled free under the door. No fibers remained. The killer was careful.
Trembling. "Lies! Reginald and I were friends." "No, Monsieur Langford," Poirot countered. "Your notebook, your own words. Confess the bribe. Sir Reginald held an affidavit. hidden in the attic chest we could not open. You argued that night. He threatened exposure. You acted. Poirot turned to the room's mechanics. The locked room was no mystery. You, Langford, entered the study at 10:30, invited by Sir Reginald to discuss the will. You argued, as a servant overheard. You shot him with the missing Webley, not the one in his hand. The cog? From a modified? From a modified gramophone in the attic, rigged to fire the gun remotely, timed to midnight, masked by the storm's thunder. You locked the door with the string trick, pulling it free. The note, forged in your hand, mimicked Sir Reginald's, using ink stolen from Graves' quarters. Gasps filled the room. Hartley stepped forward. A gramophone? Preposterous. No, Inspector, Poirot said, producing the cog. I found the device this morning, hidden in the attic chest, unlocked with a key you, Langford, hid in your valise. The muddy print in the attic, yours. The cigarette butt, placed to suggest you were outside, was too perfect, unmarred by wind. The perfume, spilled in the servants' quarters, framed Lady Amelia. The spectacle lens, planted to implicate Sophia. The cloth, torn to point at Clara. All diversions, but your handwriting on the note, compared to your notebook, betrays you. Langford's grin collapsed, his voice a snarl. You've no proof. Poirot held up a folded paper. The affidavit, found in the chest. Your name, your crime. Sir Reginald planned to deliver it to the courts. You killed to silence him. Clara sobbed. Edward stared. Sophia's jaw dropped. Amelia wept. Graves exhaled. Langford lunged, but Hartley restrained him. You sanctimonious fool, Langford spat. Reginald deserved it, blackmailing me after years of silence. Poirot's eyes softened, but his voice was firm. Monsieur, justice is blind.
Cog, the print, the handwriting, they spoke when all else lied. As Langford was led away, the household exhaled, the weight of suspicion lifting. Poirot stood by the window, gazing at the gardens. La vérité, she is not always kind, but she is just. Chapter 10. Justice Served. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Evelyn Whittaker, and oh, what a journey we've shared in Death of the Judge in Marble Hall. If you're cozied up with a warm cup of tea or basking in the glow of a quiet evening, you're in for the grand finale of our 1927 Sussex mystery. Last time, Hercule Poirot unmasked the killer in a dazzling display of deduction. Now, we tie up the threads and bid farewell to Marble Hall. Who was your favourite suspect? Or where are you listening from tonight? Drop a comment below. Your thoughts make our mystery circle truly special. Let's step into the final chapter, where justice shines through the fog. The 7th day at Marble Hall broke with a tentative sun, its rays piercing the last wisps of fog that had cloaked the Sussex estate for days. The marble facade, once a cold monument to Sir Reginald Harrington's ironclad justice, now seemed softened, as if relieved of the burden of secrets. The murder of the judge, shot in a locked study, a forged suicide note beside him, had been solved by Hercule Poirot's unerring logic, with Victor Langford unmasked as the killer. The household, battered by suspicion and grief, stood on the cusp of healing, though scars would linger. Poirot, his suit as pristine as ever, stood in the grand foyer, his dark eyes reflecting the chandelier's prismatic light. La justice, she is served, he murmured, twirling his moustache, but her taste is bitter-sweet. The drawing-room, where the fire crackled with renewed warmth, was a haven of uneasy peace. The suspects, Lady Amelia, Edward, Clara, Sophia,
and Mr. Elias Graves gathered one last time, their faces a mix of relief and exhaustion. Inspector Hartley, his skepticism replaced by grudging respect, oversaw Langford's departure in hand
portion of the estate, using her share of the true will to fund a quiet life in London, perhaps with a small charity for women in need. "Madame, your heart finds its way," Poirot said, his eyes kind. Edward Harrington, his rakish charm dimmed by shame, stood by the window, gazing at the gardens. The ledger of debts, £12,000 to unsavoury bookmakers, had exposed his desperation. But the true will's equal division offered redemption. "I was a fool," he admitted to Poirot, his voice low. "Father's threats pushed me to desperation, but I'd never have killed him." Clara, at his side, squeezed his hand, her auburn curls framing a face softened by hope. The bruise on her wrist from Edward's anger was fading, and their marriage, strained by his gambling, showed signs of repair. "We'll start anew," Clara said, her locket, now bearing Edward's photo, gleaming. Poirot noted their renewed bond, though he cautioned Edward. "Monsieur, the cards are treacherous. Choose your game wisely." Sophia Langton, her spectacles perched confidently, sat with a book, her sharp mind already planning her future. The true will's fairness secured her inheritance, and the revelation of her secret lover, Margaret, no longer threatened scandal. "Uncle was wrong to judge me," she told Poirot, her voice firm. "I'll use my share to fund our cause. Women's rights. A new era." The spectacle lens, planted to frame her, was a bitter memory, but her defiance had carried her through. Poirot admired her resolve, saying, "Mademoiselle, your courage is a beacon. Guard it well." Mr. Elias Graves, the butler, stood by the sideboard, his gaunt frame less rigid, his eyes less shadowed. The true will's generous pension ensured his retirement, a reward for 20 years of loyalty, despite Sir Reginald's false accusation of theft. The ink smudge on his cuff and the forged signature practice, meant to frame him, had been Langford's cruel ploy. "I served faithfully," Graves said, his voice steady. "I never wished him harm," stood Sentinel. "The case is closed, Monsieur l'Inspecteur," Poirot said, handing over the affidavit, a juror's confession of the bribed case that had bound Langford to Sir Reginald. Hartley, now a reluctant admirer, shook his head. "Damned clever, Poirot. That gramophone nonsense, I'd never have thought it." Poirot smiled faintly. "Non, Inspecteur. The mind, it invents what the heart cannot bear." As the household prepared to part ways, Poirot walked the gardens one last time, the gravel crunching under his patent leather shoes. The yew trees, where Clara's torn cloth had been found, whispered of deception now undone. The study's windows, once bolted mysteries, gleamed in the sunlight. "La justice, she is not always gentle," Poirot mused, "but she is precise." At noon, a chauffeured Rolls-Royce waited to take Poirot to the station. The household gathered on the steps, their faces a mix of gratitude and sorrow. Lady Amelia offered a handshake, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot." Edward and Clara, arm in arm, nodded solemnly. Sophia raised a hand, her smile defiant. Graves bowed, his dignity restored. Poirot tipped his Homburg hat. "Mes amis, guard your hearts. The truth, it sets you free." The train to London chugged through the countryside, its whistle a farewell to Marble Hall. Poirot, seated in a first-class carriage, sipped a tisane, his mind already turning to new puzzles. At Whitehaven Mansions, he would file the case in his memory, another triumph of the grey cells. Justice, she is served, he thought, the Sussex hills fading into the distance. Back at Marble Hall, the estate stood quieter now, its marble walls bearing witness to a storm weathered. The true will was enacted, debts settled, futures planned. The fog had lifted, and with it, the shadows of suspicion. Yet, in the silence of the night, the great clock's chimes echoed, a reminder that even in justice, some wounds never fully heal.